From the creators of the original Cheat Sheet Rankings, this is the Fantasy Index Podcast. Brought to you by Fantasy Index, the original and best since 1987. Now your hosts, Luke Wilson and Colt Williams.
All right, guys, welcome back to our first in-season episode of the season of the Fantasy Index Podcast. Week 1, start, sit episode. We're back, baby. We're back, Colt. Colt Williams with me, as always, Luke Wilson. Colt, how are you feeling tonight?
As soon as we're done recording the podcast, we do the behind-the-scenes stuff, and then I am immediately going to sleep, so it's one more sleep until football. I mean, football's tomorrow. I'm so excited. This would be a game that you would be looking for. You'd circle on your calendar, like a game of the year with the Ravens-Chiefs. I mean, this is a very good kickoff to the season, so I'm really, really excited too. A lot of fantasy players in it, and yeah, should be really fun. I like the Christmas morning, the
Christmas Eve night strategy of like, okay, I gotta hurry up and go to bed so that tomorrow gets here sooner. That's smart. And I mean, whatever, we would be hyped up for this game if it was whatever, Titans Panthers. Well, okay, maybe not then, but Chiefs Ravens has real juice. Like, obviously, this is potential home field advantage in the AFC on the line. And the Chiefs just ruined the Ravens season. That's the last moment in the memory banks for a lot of these guys. So this should be a great game, and obviously huge fantasy implications. I don't know. Actually, I know I have one guy that we're going to be talking about in this game. I don't know if you do, but we'll get to that in just a moment. Real quick, just a reminder. So obviously, most fantasy drafts are done. If you're in a league that was slacking, you might have one of those like, okay, guys, let's hurry up and do.
Or just earlier, right before this.
Let's do a draft at 3 p.m. on the day of the season opener real quick. So short of that, you don't need any more pre-draft cheat sheets. But never fear, we have other great products that can help you as the season goes along. Our in-season draft or our in-season fantasy cheat sheets can be instrumental in helping you make the right lineup decisions week in and week out, help you work the waiver wire, help you make the right decisions that lead to a playoff run, lead to a fantasy title. So go check that out as well in the fantasyindex.com/store just to make sure you know what all we have to offer here at the Fantasy Index. So again, fantasyindex.com/store. All right, so before we launch into this week's discussion of players you probably took in like the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th round, 5th round maybe even, and guys that maybe you're on the fence about, and making a case for starting them, or maybe saying, I might duck them this week. But before that, just to touch on some quick business around the league, because it's that time, I'm just excited to be talking about guys who are hurt or not hurt. If I'm talking about the injury report, that means a football game is coming. So that's why I want to talk about the injuries real quick. Just real quick summary on, again, fantasy relevant guys. Tyler Lockett, limited with a thigh. He missed really just about the entire Seahawks offseason training activities from like mid-July on, so that's not great. DeAndre Hopkins, who tweaked his knee a couple weeks ago, is officially limited, but he is practicing. Looks like he's going to play. CeeDee Lamb is building up to full reps. Obviously, protracted holdout, so that's not terribly surprising. I don't think either of us are significantly adjusting him down for
not at all.
Tyreek Hill had the brace on his wrist, had a thumb thing. That's done. He's off the injury report. He's good to go. Jalen Waddle off injury report. He had a calf, cranky calf. He's good to go. Kyle Pitts. So Kyle Pitts did, you probably already saw, but Kyle Pitts picked up a hamstring. Actually, he'd already been kind of nursing it, but the coverage apparatus around the Atlanta Falcons has not been very good this offseason because their training facility has been under construction, and that disrupted media coverage, so they've been kind of a cone of silence. So that's why we haven't had as much Falcons coverage. But it turns out Pitts has been dealing with a mildly upset hamstring for a week or two. They don't seem that scared about it, but it's Kyle Pitts, so we have to keep an eye.
The definition of insanity is drafting Kyle Pitts over and over and over again and expecting results to be different. So
unless he slides to you in drafts, Colt, it's not like I meant to. It's not like I sought it out. Anyway. Yeah. Justin Herbert, who had plantar fasciitis, which I'm sure he still is dealing with in some form, but he is off the injury report. That's going to be something he's going to be managing in some degree throughout the 2024 season, but he's good to go. Keenan Allen has a heel, whatever. I mean, he's a vet. He's going to pick up these little nuisance type things here and there. He's limited. Looks like he should be fine. Christian Kirk is off the injury report. Jahmyr Gibbs is off the injury report. That's huge. Sam Laporta, who also had a hamstring, he is off the injury report. So if you were monitoring any of those guys, I mean, I've got several of those guys in leagues. Breathe a sigh of relief, except for Pitts. We got to keep an eye on that one. All right. So anyway, that's our injury news or whatever, injury microwaving of recent developments. Colt, it's time. We are ready to talk starts and sits for the first time in 2020. I just got goosebumps. Hold on. I got to wait for the hairs on the back of my neck to lie down. Okay. Would you like to start us off with your first, little drum roll, your first start of the season? Who you got?
That my start of the season. So great intro right there. And I loved your injury huddle. Maybe we call it that. It's a quick, everybody at the line here. Hey, this is what's going on. This is what you're dealing with. You're dealing with that. Yeah, no, I really like that. Yeah. So my start of the week, let's go ahead and kick it off with a guy. We're looking at guys who you said it perfectly. Round 6 to 10. I mean, quarterback, they're going to be a little bit all over the place, but players who aren't exactly in your starting roster. Maybe they're in your flex spots and stuff like that. But
Josh
we'll
Allen
get to
is
that.
not your start of the week, you're saying?
Who is that?
Josh Allen is not the name you're about to say here.
He is not.
Okay.
No, it's actually Christian. No, I'm going to start off with quarterback. I've got Tua versus the Jags. The Jags defense, they rank 29th according to PFF. They've made a ton of changes there in the secondary and all over really the defense in general. It's going to take a little while for them to mesh, in my opinion. Tua last year, he came off to a hot start, 466 yards, 3 touchdowns in week 1. I've got him as a top 10 quarterback here this week.
Yeah, that feels rock solid. The Dolphins in week 1 last year exploded out of the gate against the Chargers. The Chargers weren't very good, it turned out. But they were ready for a track meet right from the start, and they were on the road in that one. They're at home here, I believe. They're at home?
This one is at home. Yeah, in Miami.
Whatever, Jacksonville, Miami. Either way, it's
a
pseudo-home game. Yeah, that's a great play. And again, Tua's exactly the kind of guy who, like, you took Tua, you either took him as like a super kind of punt quarterback or as a high-end QB2. And, there's another quarterback in that same range who I'm going to talk about later who maybe you want to duck that player in favor of Tua in week 1 just to kind of hedge a little bit. So, no, I love that play. Whatever, 250, 275 yards should be almost baked in to his matchup this week, so I love that. My QB start of the week is a little spicier, I would say. I'm going to go with a quarterback who's playing in a game with an over-under of 45, so not implied to be a super high-scoring game, making his NFL debut at home. I'm going Caleb Williams at home against the Titans. Now, looking at this matchup, you might see, oh, man, the Titans' defense was pretty good last year, and Caleb is a rookie. I don't know if I want to really mess with that. I don't think what the Titans' defense was or wasn't last year is super relevant here. Vrabel's gone, okay? And when a guy like Vrabel leaves the building, a lot of knowledge and culture and scheme and all that stuff goes with him. So what the Titans' defense is now or isn't, we don't know, okay? But we know that Caleb Williams is a very exciting and very interesting player, and I believe, okay, and if you took him in fantasy in the last week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you at least partially believe, you're willing to believe, if you're not starting him at home against the Titans defense where it's, we don't know what the Titans are, and if you're going to own him, if you're going to play him at all at any point in the season, why not here, why not now, as he looks to announce with authority, the bad men are gone, Bears fans. I'm going to take care of you now. We're setting our past, we're putting our trauma behind us, we're marching toward maybe like a 10-7 season.
A 10-7 season would be a huge success for the Bears. I think they would be really happy with that.
Absolutely.
That's possibly playoff bound. I love the pick. That's a great pick, Caleb Williams.
And of course, rushing floor, he might scoot for a touchdown on the ground, all that.
Yeah, he's got a sneaky rushing floor for sure. I think he's probably my single most excited. I mean, we're always excited for rookies because it's like the unknown, right?
Sure.
I'm probably more excited for him than I am for Marvin Harrison Jr. or Malik Neighbors.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm really, really excited for his debut because it's just the Bears franchise, not as I'm a Bears fan or anything like that. I just want to see what's going to go on. And if everything hits, then he's going to be good for a really long time. So I love that pick. And Titans defense, we'll talk about them a little bit later. Not that good. So so yeah, let's go on. I'm gonna go with my running back. I got Kenneth Walker versus the Broncos. The Broncos,
Nice.
if you remember anything from last year early on, the Miami game, right, 70-point game, that was the Broncos. They have one of the worst one of the worst defensive lines in the NFL. If they're fighting with Arizona for 32nd best. Again, like I said, they got exposed by Miami. I think the Seahawks are kind of determined to get Walker worked into the passing game. You hear Ryan Grubb, he's talking about it. He's like, hey, no, he can actually catch the ball. Like, that wasn't his MO, and he did a little bit of that last year. But you watching the interviews, that's how they've kind of used him. But yeah, I love me some Kenneth Walker here this week. And they're a favorite by a touchdown. So in a favorable game, the running game should be good against the Broncos.
Yeah, I really like. I mean, I'm not even shining on. I really like the pick. Kenneth Walker is. I don't know if he's as good as. I mean, he's not as good as peak Nick Chubb as a runner, but he reminds me of him at times. I mean, we're talking about a guy who has real size, real tackle breaking power, and he can hit a home run from anywhere on the field. Mm-hmm. Not like a Devon Achane, but I mean, he's got sub 4.4 wheels, and it's year 3. And we've got an exciting new offensive coordinator who knows what's possible. I love that pick. And yeah, Denver. Denver doesn't scare me. At home in Seattle, 12th man does not scare me. So no, that's a rock solid play for sure. My running back play of the week. I'm gonna go with somebody who is not as good as Kenneth Walker, as a great many running backs are. I'm gonna say Jerome Ford at home against a Dallas defense that had its heart and soul and some of its entrails ripped out when Dan Quinn said, see ya, deuces, and bolted to Washington, D.C., and took a lot of important guys with him. Took Doris Armstrong, took Fowler, took like I said, the locker room, the beating heart of that locker room was Quinn. He's gone. Mike Zimmer, hey, you could do a lot worse as an emergency, stopgap than Zimmer. But Zimmer was already the defensive coordinator in Dallas 22 years ago, okay? I mean, it's the Cowboys defense takes a big step back for me, and I'm not ducking them. Ford could have 18 touches here, and 6 of them could be receptions very easily. That alone, I'm in.
Yeah, certainly a volume play, if nothing else. If you went like the zero or hero running back, I mean, it just depends on where you got him in drafts and when you drafted, because it really varies. Like he got a lot of steam here coming up, especially with the Nick Chubb officially being put on the PUP list. Right. No, I love it. Kenneth Walker, I didn't necessarily go as bold. He's somebody probably 4th, 5th, 6th round, maybe 6th, but 6 is very, very lenient.
There are leagues, though. There are leagues where, like, if you went heavy at running back, you're thinking about it. You're like, you're looking at like, well, do I? What about Walker? Maybe I sit him. No. I think you do. Right. I think you do not.
Yeah. Here's a guy. I'm going with my wide receiver. It was the 3rd wide receiver drafted from his own team, and I think this week it could be his week. Tank Dell at the Colts. The cornerback for the Colts, Kenny Moore, one of the best cornerbacks in the league. He is either going to get Nico Collins or he's going to get Stephon Diggs. Outside of Kenny Moore, it's very, very gray. It's not a good look for the Colts. The CJ Stroud to Tank Dell love is real, and it's not just by me; it's by CJ Stroud itself. So, yeah, I'm in on Tank Dell this week. If you drafted him, maybe he's on your bench, or you drafted him as like a second flex. I think he's rock solid here this week.
I mean, I could see it. I could see it working out. Of course, I could see it working out. I mean, we're talking about a talented receiver who plays for the Texans. It could always work out.
Do you think there's too many mouths to feed?
Well, I mean, that's going to be a recurring theme. Part of me wonders if it's Stephon Diggs' first game there. Maybe they just try to kill him with kindness, and
the ball.
Kindness takes the form of 11 targets. Now, the Texans should still throw it 40 times. So 11 targets, I mean, there's still plenty to go around. So I'm not saying I dislike it, but I'm going to need Tank Dell to show me what the floor is first before I talk about floor with Dell. But upside, sure, Dell could drop 120 on 4 catches easily, for sure.
Yeah.
So it's a strong play. But again, if you took Dell, there's a good chance you were starting him anyway. So yeah.
Yeah, and the one thing about Stephon Diggs, I actually saw a tweet come out. I think it was by Kyle Borgononi, and it went. And it's a great follow on Twitter. But yeah, I think it was like as you go through the months, like going through September, October, November, December, like Stephon Diggs always starts extremely hot and then just slowly regresses throughout the entire season. So that's not quite to the extent he did it last season, but just over the whole path of his career has always started really hot. So maybe.
And in was it 20? I think it was 2022. That was when Josh Allen had the elbow issue down the stretch, which didn't help either. So Allen's,
a lot of storylines.
Allen's arm is an issue down the stretch in 2022. The offensive coordinator changed down the stretch last year, but also maybe Stephon Diggs just kicks it into neutral after Halloween. We don't know. No, I like Dell quite a bit. I'm going spicy out of the gate here.
Let's see.
Dig your fingernails into your chair now just to save yourself some time. My wide receiver start of the week is playing tomorrow night. He's not playing for the Chiefs. It's Rashad Bateman at Kansas City. Okay, I know. But here's the thing. If it's gonna happen, it's gotta happen kind of right away.
Healthy.
So if you're in a situation where you're even thinking about starting Bateman, you already have some sort of situation on your hands. Like, you drafted DeAndre Hopkins and Tyler Lockett and Jamar Chase and CeeDee Lamb, and like you've got wide receiver calamity underfoot somehow, and you're in a spot. Again, I've been saying it all offseason. I'll just one more time. The Ravens keep saying, John Harbaugh specifically, keeps saying all the right things about Bateman. He had an unequivocally very strong camp. I mean, he did. And he's running exclusively with the ones. Like, they're giving us all the indications in the world that they are back serious. They're back in on Bateman here. The Ravens go to Kansas City. They bring Derrick Henry with them. Derrick Henry obviously is a living legend. If you're the Chiefs, what are your top priorities? Lamar Jackson on the ground, Derrick Henry on the ground, Mark Andrews. Rashad Bateman should see a lot of man coverage here, okay? And if the Ravens are serious about, telling the world, showing the world, hey, Rashad Bateman is a player and he's going to be a real part of this offense going forward, what better chance than prime time season opener in a grudge match against the Chiefs in Kansas City? It's risky. Obviously it's risky, but if you're even in a situation to consider it, you're dealing with some risk of some sort or another. It's Bateman or it's what's a comparable Adam Thielen. I mean, you're down to the dregs here. So that's my thing.
So Rashad Bateman, in your defense, I will say in 2022 he did get off to a hot start.
He did.
He was on the field. He was not a full-time player, but a primary player there. Got off to a hot start. Yeah, had like had a really hot start. Let's just put it that way.
Sure.
Last year, not so much, banged up a whole bunch. When healthy, he's been okay. When he's been healthy and had the opportunity to get onto the field. Right now, I think I have to double check, but Mark Andrews, it should be a full go. Yeah, he's a full go for the game, which gives me a little bit less confidence in Bateman. Bateman always seems like a training camp guy. Like, he's always just been really good. Nobody gets better reviews besides Taysom Hill in training camp. But Taysom Hill actually does something there on the NFL field. So I think that's the difference between those two players.
So just as I was considering making him my start of the week, I was, questioning myself as any sane person would. And then right then on Twitter, I saw the Fantasy Points announced some new metric of theirs that they just released, called separation score. Tank Dell was number 1 in the NFL last year in their brand new hot off the presses separation score metric with a .257 separation score. So
that was Tank Dell?
Tank Dell was number 1. So hey, there you go. Deontay Johnson was number 2, .244. Rashad Bateman was 3rd in the NFL in this brand new metric, which we don't even know if it means anything at all. But I took it as a sign that Rashad Bateman has a real shot here. He does. He has a shot to get off the canvas here. We just get so we're always looking for the next guy. We're always looking for, like, okay, who are the rookies that are for real and who are the guys who are not? And we're always looking to separate the guys who can play into the guys who can't. And it just hasn't happened for Bateman for so long that, yeah, it's easy to say, like, nah, it's just never going to happen. I believe Bateman has had real extenuating circumstances, and regardless, It doesn't matter what I think. The Ravens think that Bateman has, and they're giving him another shot for real. So again, they were 6th in total offense last year. He's a starting receiver on this team. He's going to be on the field for 70-75% of the snaps. It's worth a shot. If you need to take a shot.
Yeah, it doesn't take a lot of plays for Bateman either. So
right, so he's like a 16-yard per catch type guy potentially. Yeah, exactly. That's another point in his favor. So.
At tight end, this one is not going to be terribly juicy. I would say it's just more of a confidence thing.
Sure.
Is what I feel like, because while he showed some flashes there last year, maybe I feel like people have different perspectives of this tight end. I'm talking about Dalton Kincaid versus the Arizona Cardinals. Dalton Kincaid is drafted this year as like a top 6 tight end, so he's the upper echelon. But what did he do last year that really proved that he should do that, besides Stephon Diggs in the offseason, Stephon Diggs leaving, Gabe Davis leaving, pieces leaving, and just catapulting him to the number one in the offense. The Cardinals, they've historically been one of the worst defenses in the league the past couple of years, especially against the tight end. Keon Coleman's a very raw prospect and is still getting his feet up from under him. So I think Kincaid, expect good things here this week. Just more of a confidence pick. If you drafted him, you were already starting him, I feel like, but just a little bit more of a pat on his back.
Yeah, the Cardinals played bend don't break defense last year, trying to keep teams from putting 40 on them and settling for them putting 28 on them a lot. And it worked. They did not get blown out that much. So no, that makes sense. And look at the forest for the trees here. Like Khalil Shakir, he's probably more of a Robin than a Batman. I mean, let's be real. Curtis Samuel, I mean, who knows? Sure, he could randomly bow up for 75, 80 total yards. It wouldn't shock me. Even if he does, Kincaid could still have 90. So it's just there's the receiver pecking order here is clearly in flux. It's clearly going to be a work in progress. The one through line, the one guy who's it seems like the size of his dinner plate is already established is Dalton Kincaid. But also, I mean, he does need a little bit of a vote of confidence. Stephon Diggs disappeared down the stretch last year. So did Dalton Kincaid. His numbers fell off just like Diggs's did when Dorsey came in. So, yeah, you were starting him anyway, but it's nice to give a little, hey, we believe in this guy. We believe that I think he's going to lead the team in receptions in all likelihood. So, I like that. Again, as like you said, like a vote, like, don't worry. If you had any doubt in your heart, remove it. Go ahead and start him with confidence. I'm keeping it spicy, Colt. I'm keeping it real spicy. So right before we got on, Colt informed me of an interesting development with a player that I also like, who the Dolphins are listing as a fullback, which, given what we've seen from how they've been tinkering with him in the preseason, it's not terribly surprising. The Dolphins listed Jonnu Smith as a fullback. That alone implies they're going to be doing some things with Jonnu Smith this season that could be interesting. So I'm a little bit sad that he's not my tight end.
Is that how you took it? Okay.
He's not. I'm sad that he's not my tight end start of the week. Maybe I'll circle back from next week. My start of the week this week is Taysom Hill versus Carolina. And obviously, caveat, there are still some sites out there, some platforms where he does not have tight end eligibility. Jonnu Smith, he definitely does. Miami's trying to get it revoked, but Johnny has your tight end eligibility. So if you're feeling spicy, you punt a tight end, go get you some Jonnu in your life. But Taysom Hill, I mean, the Saints have been telling us clear as all get out all summer, we love Taysom Hill so much. The second, not long after they hired Kubiak and Dennis Allen flew out to Utah to go see Taysom Hill at his house. Okay, like how much more? What are you going out there to kiss the mafia boss's ring? Like why is that necessary? They love Taysom Hill. They're serious about Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill could have double-digit touchdowns. It would shock me 0.0%. So yeah, if you don't have the Dalton Kincaids, the McBrides, even the Evan Ingrams, the David Njokus, Taysom is here to quite possibly, grit and grind his way to 12, 14 fantasy points for you against the Panthers in week 1. So yeah, that's my guy.
Yeah, I still have a little bit of a grudge to hold against Taysom Hill. I'm just thinking about the Alvin Kamara Christmas game when he could have broke the record and Taysom Hill came in there and ended up plotting one in.
Yeah,
so that was years ago.
Spoken like somebody
who
wasn't facing Kamara that night in the fantasy championship. So
but Taysom Hill. I mean, he had 4 rushing touchdowns on the ground last year. What tight end is doing that?
Well,
not many.
Maybe Jonnu.
And then maybe Jonnu. And then receiving, I mean, he had another 2 receiving touchdowns. So he's getting you kind of double dipping there, which I think elevates his floor to a level my wife doesn't love me as much as the Saints love Taysom Hill. Let's just put it that way. So they have an affinity for this guy, and they want to use him. How they use him in week 1, I don't think it's actually that deep of a cut. I drafted TJ Hawkinson. We were talking about this before the pod. I drafted TJ Hawkinson, and I threw him immediately onto my IR, and I wanted to go get Taysom Hill and just throw him into my starting spot because I have that confidence here this week.
He has
as
a nice floor.
Yeah.
In fantasy, I mean, he does.
At tight end, you're just looking for a touchdown, and then they're a top 12 on the week for the most part, and he has, I think, some of the greatest odds amongst anybody. So,
for sure.
Yeah, I like Taysom Hill a lot. At defense special teams, I've got the Seahawks versus the Broncos. This is kind of a twofer. This is so you get to use the Seahawks twice in a row. They play the Broncos here this week versus Bo Nix. I think really all the time you want to start, even if it's like an average defense, which that's probably what I'd say maybe they're sub-average, but they're not horrible as far as the Seahawks defense goes.
McDonald.
Yeah, exactly. You got a defensive mind in there who wants to play good defense, or at least has played good defense there with previous teams.
For sure.
You get Bo Nix, rookie quarterback. That's usually a great sign here for defenses. They're going to make rookie mistakes, especially in their very first game. And then after that, you've got either Jacoby Brissett versus on the Patriots or Drake May going into week 2. So it's really a 2-week rental, I think, with this defense. It's somebody I've been grabbing in a lot of drafts because, like I said, you get the 2 weeks for them.
The Seahawks at home, they could be playing the Niners, and they could randomly give you like a top 10 DST day because the 12th man effect is. I mean, I used to live in Seattle, Fantasy Index based in Seattle, so we know about the Seahawks. It gets loud in that stadium, and that's the kind of thing that, especially rookie quarterback on the road. I'm not really looking to pick on Bo Nix necessarily overall because Denver, Sean Payton just kept Russell Wilson out of trouble for whatever it was, 13, 14 games before Sean Payton just couldn't stomach it anymore. So I think he can do that for Bo Nix too. In general, though, but first game on the road in Seattle, the NFL schedule makers, they must have offended Sean Payton at some point because this is not the way you want to start it for the rookie.
Not at all.
Trial by fire. So I like that play a lot, but I'm very glad that you did not go with my preferred play, which our own Blackout Ben actually pointed this out to me just a couple days ago, and then he realized that he had just sunk his own ship because we're in a couple leagues together. He's like, oh man, I shouldn't have told you that. So. My defensive start of the week is a team that you need to keep in your hip pocket in December for sure. The Atlanta Falcons at home against Arthur Smith's Pittsburgh Steelers. So we get an immediate grudge match here. And if this was in Pittsburgh, I would think that the Steelers are going to, play hard. I mean, they're going to play hard. They're the Steelers. But it would be a different story. The Falcons at home against their old head coach, I think that they're going to come out and lay the lumber. And then never mind the fact that the Steelers might have the worst passing game in the NFL when it's all said and done. I'm not necessarily anointing them the favorites in that category, but it's squarely in play here for sure. Roman Wilson is banged up. Jalen Warren is limited with a hamstring right now. The Falcons could hold the Steelers under 300, under 275 yards of total offense here for sure. I mean, that's 100% possible. And just a quick scan of their schedule down the line, it's pretty tasty. The Falcons in the fantasy playoffs this year, week 15 against the Raiders. It's in Las Vegas, but week 15 against the Raiders, who could be bad. Week 16 at home for the Giants. Week 17 at Washington Commanders, who, I mean, really of those three offenses, that one's probably the best, and unfortunately it's in week 17. But that's week 14 against the Vikings. That's not necessarily too scary. Week 13 against the Chargers, that might not be too scary. So they potentially, if this defense is solidly above average, and they have invested a lot. They brought in Matthew Judon just a couple weeks ago, who was cranky about his contract with the Patriots. He's a real player. Timmons. They've got the league's highest paid free safety in Jesse Bates. They've got AJ Terrell at corner, one of the best corners in the league. They've got a real defense. So, yeah, I like that play here. And, again, a defense that you want, when they get off of their Week 12 bye, you want to think about snapping them up.
Yeah, no, I like it a lot. I mean, just as you mentioned, the offense that they're facing, even if they're not a great defense, they've added a lot of pieces to it, trying to make it great.
Raheem
With
Morris,
Judon and
good DC, now the head
yeah,
coach.
yeah. So I mean, that's kind of it. Sometimes a head coach, a defensive-minded head coach, isn't great for fantasy because we might see like the offense struggle, but we know they're a good defensive head coach, so that they're going to want to play a little bit more defensive that way. We've seen it, numerous times. D'Amico Ryans, like it kind of started to bolster the defense that way,
Right.
and things like that. So, yeah, no, I'm totally on board with that. Let's get into the sits.
Let's do it.
Because these are some guys that, whether you drafted them or not, there's some that I have in here that I'm really genuinely curious what you're about. Because I have one guy that I think he's being drafted in the second round, and I have him as a sit. So we'll get to him here in a moment. But I'm going to start it off.
I wonder if I know who it is. I think I do, but go ahead.
I'm going to start it off with Trevor Lawrence at the Dolphins. The Dolphins, their defense, I think, is actually pretty strong. They added Jordan Brooks, Jordan Poyer, Kendall Fuller. They're getting Jalen Ramsey back, Javon Holland. Like, they are kind of stacked there. And I think one thing that's kind of underrated with defenses, as far as the way that the offense goes, like the Dolphins are going to keep drives alive. They are a very good offense, so it's going to take more time off the clock there for Trevor Lawrence to be doing stuff. So I think that's it. And then you have Christian Kirk, who has been kind of banged up for a lot of this training camp. Brian Thomas, they said they want to get him used to his full capacity. What does that mean? I mean, he's a rookie going into his very first game. Even Justin Jefferson had slow first games there, as a rookie. So I'm kind of curious of how it goes. I'm not really excited to start Trevor Lawrence here this week. Tua is obviously my start, and I like him much more on the other side of the ball.
I'm not stoked about starting Trevor Lawrence here either, but even I wonder if that's a little bit of recency bias against him because of how bad the Jaguars looked down the stretch, and they did. They did look terrible. They were 8-3 at one point, finished 9-8. Offensive line disintegrated, and the entire offense, fell through the sinkhole right along with it. But Trevor Lawrence, I feel like he's pretty good, and I saw a nerd stat earlier, like adjusted EPA, when like basically all the crummy stuff that's mostly out of the quarterback's control was filtered out. Trevor Lawrence was like top 3, top 5 in the NFL last year in adjusted EPA, up there with like Dak Prescott. So I feel like, right now we're kind of down on him, but he's pretty good. We certainly love Brian Thomas Jr. We certainly love, even worst case scenario is like Brian Thomas Jr. doesn't have, disappoints in fantasy, but just the physical presence and the dimension that he brings to the offense raises the tide for everybody else. I think that's the worst case here because defenses are going to have to really account for this guy. So I really like that addition. I think it's so much more valuable to the health of the offense overall than Calvin Ridley was. Ugh. And then they can't even contain it, Colt. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Gabe Davis, no one's, again, kind of like with Trevor Lawrence, no one's in on Gabe Davis at this point. No one's like excited to, oh, wow, they got Gabe Davis. The Jags are going all the way. No one's saying that. Maybe he was kind of typecast in Buffalo, and they only let him play one note on the guitar, and maybe he has another dimension to his game. It's not likely, but certainly like Brian Thomas Jr. and Gabe Davis replacing Ridley and Zay Jones, I like that. I think that's a net improvement for the overall offense. Anyway, I'm rattling on. I think Trevor Lawrence could have a QB1 day here. I'm not seeking it out because he is on the road. The Dolphins are tough, and their defense is underrated for sure.
They're going to put up points.
But I just, if somebody was considering Trevor Lawrence, I would say it's an edge case for sure. It's an edge case. But I mean, gotcha. the Jaguars ended ice cold. They could start ice cold, and Doug Peterson could start feeling the seat get real hot real fast. So neither would surprise me. Sorry, was that it for your?
Yeah, no, that's it. I mean, it could be a game where they score a lot of points. I mean, the Dolphins we know are going to put up a lot of points. Trevor Lawrence could be playing from behind in that sense. I'm just not sure what the roles are of everybody is, as you mentioned, where they typecasted. So you laid it out perfectly.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I mean, that's one that I'm like, I'll be honest, I could see it going either way. I could see the Jags pulling off the upset. I mean, they were good last year until things just got away from them because of injuries. So we'll see. I kind of have two here. I'm not going to go too deep into it, but Brock Purdy at home for the Jets on Monday night. Everyone seems to think the Jets defense is potentially, it could be the 86 Bears, or it could at least be on that, on that, in that range of great to the 2000 Ravens, like, a defense that we look back and go, man, that was a unit.
They're great everywhere.
Right? Yeah, all through the season, PFF's number one secondary Jets, number one linebacking group Jets, number one defensive line. So I mean, yeah, they have so much talent, it's ridiculous. The Niners probably win this game, but it could be a war of attrition. The Niners, might just not need to throw much. They might not want to. So coming out and 303 on the Jets defense here, I just don't super see it. And again, if you have Purdy, you probably have another guy around. Hopefully you do. I would just see who else you have out there. Maybe Will Levis against unproven Chicago Bears defense on the road. I mean, if you're feeling like a gambler, I don't know.
I would take your Caleb Williams or Tua any one of our starts of the week over Brock Purdy this week for sure.
And then I have one other one that it's not. I mean, I see it both ways. It's kind of like your T-Law. Jaden Daniels on the road against Tampa. A defense that generally is no nonsense. That could be a very slow start to his career. Sure, he'll scoot for probably 50, 60 yards, and that gives him something of a floor. I don't really want the possibility of 12 points in my Week 1 season opener for my quarterback, and I feel like that's in play here. The Bucs defense is stout, and they took away one of his receivers. I mean, whatever. Jahan Dotson's no great shakes, we don't think, but it doesn't help. So, I'm not crazy about Daniels. I'm not crazy about Purdy.
If you had to start one of the two, Purdy or Daniels, which one are you starting this week?
I would go Purdy.
Oh, really? Okay.
I would go Purdy.
Okay.
I would go.
I feel like he's got a higher floor, even though you've got the rushing capacity with.
Right. Honestly, I think Purdy's going to get like 180 to 225 yards passing in that range. And probably like a couple touchdowns, maybe a pick.
Hopefully two. Yeah. Hopefully two touchdowns. Yeah. You'd be really happy if you got that stat line. Okay, yeah, I think that's where I lean to. I think the very high ceiling is with Jaden Daniels, but in the first NFL game, I'm not 100% sure.
It could, but I'm not going to bet on it personally.
Yeah, likewise. At running back, a guy we've kind of been a little bit pounding the table for, a local guy for you, Rico Dowdle at the Browns is my sit of the week. This is a deeper bench guy, but he's been getting a lot of hype. And depending on how your drafts went, maybe you bolstered every other position besides running back, and he's maybe a running back too or a flex.
Sure.
But Rico Dowdle, he's been basically named the starter. They've taken him off special teams. They want to use him. I'm not 100%. So first of all, you got Zadarius Smith, Myles Garrett, Dalvin Tomlinson, like extremely good defense overall in general. And we aren't 100% sure, one, what Rico Dowdle is, or two, what the timeshare will look like him and Zeke. So I am a no-go on Rico.
And I didn't check actually, but Dalvin Cook could be active this week.
I believe so. I'll double check into that. But that's just another cog into the puzzle. So ready for any role is what they've said. So
and I mean, again, when you're talking about a guy who even best case is still smack dab deep in a timeshare. Even if Cook is getting 5 touches, well, those 5 touches got to come from somebody, and Dowdle might not have him to spare. So I love Dowdle, and I think he's going to be the guy. But yeah, on the road, Browns defense is tough. If you can avoid it, if you have other options, Chuba Hubbard, a guy who has a more secure touch floor. Like I said, Jerome Ford, the guy on the other team. I would certainly go with that, but I like Dowdle's upside, over 17 games. My running back sit of the week is going to be Javonte Williams at Seattle. I'm not really scared of the Seattle defense, but I also don't know what it is yet. I am kind of budgeting for a shot in the arm effect from Mike McDonald showing up here. Javonte has something to prove here, guys, and I know we love the offense that he's in, and that's great, but we went full circle with this guy over the offseason. There was a window for a week or two there where it's like, oh my God, are they going to cut Javonte? They're going to trade him? Is he going to Dallas? And then all of a sudden Sean Payton decided, no, I'm going to put the word out there that I like him again. Like there's too much uncertainty here. There's more uncertainty here with Javonte, certainly than his ADP implies, which his ADP was in like the Najee Harris, not as high as like Ramondre, but it was kind of in that middling area where it's like, well, this guy should have most of the work, and he might, but we don't really know yet. And they're on the road. Seattle gets the crowd effect crowd noise is a real thing. We're streaming the defense against this offense, so it kind of dovetails. And talent. Like I need Javonte to show me what he still has, because this is it. This is his put up or shut up year, and if he's going to be on James Robinson Island making the practice squad tour year after year, if he pulls another 2023, I think so.
Yeah, I like the pick here as a sit for the week. It's much like I'm on the Javonte Williams train. I'm not in love with this situation, and I'm not sure what it's very much my Rico Dowdle case where I'm not sure what his role is or how they're going to use him or if he has juice. Like season long, I'm pretty excited about Dowdle if things go right, and the same thing with Javonte Williams. So
that's a good comparison.
That's kind of where I'm at as well. I don't want to gamble on it in week one. I mean, first week matchup. So I'm kind of out there.
If you're talking about like between whatever Javonte and Jaleel McLaughlin, his partner, his presumed partner in crime there, sure, yeah, go Javonte at that point because we have to give him the touch edge for now. It's all relative to like what are your alternatives. If you have real alternatives like some of the guys that Colt was talking about earlier, or my Jerome Ford, I would consider them. I would.
Yeah. Here's my spicy pick. So at wide receiver, my sit of the week is Brandon Ayuk versus the Jets. You kind of made already the case, so I won't hit on it too terribly much with Brock Purdy. Jets secondary, best in the league. And Ayuk, you add in that he hasn't been training at all because he's waiting for, is he going to get traded? Is he going to get a contract? How are they going to do it? Turns out signs with the same team we said that he was going to sign with in the offseason.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, just the matchup in itself. You just talked about Brock Purdy. You'd be really excited if he got 225 yards and 2 touchdowns. Banking on the guy who's missed a lot of the training camp. Do they ease him back in? We're just talking about CeeDee Lamb. He got a contract about the same time, and it's like they're working him in practices. He's got a game here coming up here on Monday, and I'm not rolling out Brandon Ayuk. Now, that's going to be a very controversial pick, I think, because you're drafting him right around Deebo Samuel's ADP, which is about the second, third round pick. So you may not have any other options. But if I had somebody who I grabbed way later, depending on when you drafted, like a Rashee Rice, I would probably pay. I'm going to play that over Brandon Ayuk. If I had like a Jaden Reed, I think that's against Philadelphia. I'll play that over Ayuk this week. There's a lot of options, I think.
Rashad Bateman.
No.
Wow.
No.
Leaving me on an island on Bateman.
I'm sorry on that one. No, wow. I said he could have a couple of catches maybe for
Bateman. I mean, hey, if you're right, and I think that's a sensible play. Yes, it's tough to sit a guy like Ayuk with that draft capital in week 1. But if you're ever going to sit him, which maybe you won't, but if there were ever a game to sit him, it's this one when his snap complement is up in the air. I mean, maybe he's ready to take a full complement of snaps. He might be. If ever there were a game where they were going to throttle it a little bit, it's this one. He's got Sauce Gardner. He's got DJ Reed. I'm blanking on the last name.
Yeah, I believe so. Yes.
I can't remember if it was DJ Reed or DJ Turner, the other excellent corner for the Jets. Sorry, DJ. But yeah, I mean this defense, week 1 after he was out all summer long, so we really don't know how ready he is for NFL action. Yeah, no, I think that's understandable, but again, it's all relative. Like, are you going to sit him? Are you going to sit him for? Jonathan Mingo is an extreme example. Are you going to sit him for even like Romeo Doubs? Probably not. So,
no.
But yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
temper expectations.
Well, if you guys have that start and set question, hit us up on Twitter. You could find Luke at DLuke87. Ask him this question, or myself at _Colt Williams. Put it in the comments on the YouTube video or on the podcast. Just let us know. Feel free to ask us if you have any start or sit questions. So we always love those. We love kind of comparing. Give us a little bit of is this PPR? What are your options? And kind of give us a little bit of lay of the land beforehand. But yeah, Brandon Ayuk is a guy who I'm not sure what to do with him here in the first week against a very, very, very difficult matchup.
Right. Yeah. So I think that one's sensible. My wide receiver sit of the week, it's a little bit chintzy, but I mean, this is a guy who's been a mainstay in fantasy football for several years now. So I feel like there's definitely going to be guys who are thinking about starting him. Tyler Lockett at home for the Broncos. I wrote it up a little bit on the Fantasy Index website a couple days ago, but so Lockett has been with Seahawks his entire career. He'd been with Pete Carroll for his entire career. we've got a new regime in town now. Jackson Smith and Jigba is coming on strong. We have to think, and this was not the right time for Tyler Lockett to miss really the entire offseason. Certainly all the meaningful reps from like late July, mid-July on. It looks like he should play. He should at least be active, but I'm avoiding this completely. We have no idea what kind of involvement he's going to see in week 1. He could wind up being a surprise inactive. It's in play here, so yeah, Lockett I'm out on.
Yeah, Lockett is a guy who is going to be a familiar name in fantasy spaces, and it just I think the emergence of JSN and DK Metcalf, and they want to do this air raid offense. Maybe he has a role there, but I think he was recently banged up too, if I'm not mistaken, with Tyler Lockett. But that's just
right.
Going off the top of my head.
That's the real thing, is that he's got a thigh issue right now.
Yeah.
I've seen him in like Twitter check-in videos on video clips with like a patella tendon wrap right under his left knee, like pressing against that patella tendon right there. So I don't even know if that's related or not. So his health is a definite question. He turns 32 in a couple weeks. Like, that's getting up there. He's been around for a long time, guys, and he might be getting phased out. He fell apart down the stretch last year. He disappeared. Yeah. So yeah, no, I'm out on Lockett.
I hear you there. At tight end, I am sitting Cole Kmet. I know you got Caleb Williams as your start of the week at the quarterback, but Cole Kmet versus the Titans. The Titans, if they had any bright spot on defense, which they've added some names, some familiar names, Snead and stuff like that, and they have some veteran players, Simmons, and people who are just like good voices of the team. But weirdly enough, they are surprisingly good against the tight end position. Last year, they only allowed 3 touchdowns to the tight end position. You add in that there are a ton of mouths to feed. How is Caleb going to decipher who he wants to go to? I love Caleb Williams, here this week and going forward, because all those pieces and mouths to feed are just good things for him. Picking on who it's going to be each week, I'm not 100% sure. Cole Kmet, I would imagine, is the 4th, maybe 5th target in the offense, maybe depending on how much they want to use DeAndre Swift. I'm not 100% sure on how it goes. I like him as a sneaky value long term, but at week 1, I want to see how the cards fold for the Bears, and the Titans, like I said, are sneaky good against the defense of tight ends.
Yeah, no, I think that makes good sense. I was actually pretty disappointed when I saw that you went with Kmet as your sit, because you're absolutely going to be mine. The word that I've seen on the street is that Gerald Everett, who worked with Shane Waldron in Seattle, so they have a prior relationship, may have pushed Cole Kmet into a true committee at tight end as well. So that, on top of the receivers, DeAndre Swift is going to have a role in this passing game. It's looking real bleak for Cole Kmet, guys. So that, yeah, if you took him thinking like, wow, why is Cole Kmet so affordably priced in redraft this year? There was a reason. I would be preparing for some goose eggs there for sure. So since I couldn't go with Kmet, I went with the next best thing, which is Cade Otton. Cade Otton, who had really done almost nothing, next to nothing through 2 years in the league statistically, had a heck of a playoff run for the Bucs last year in their 2-game playoff run. He had, I believe, 11 targets and like 8 receptions in their wild card win, and then he had like 6 for 65 and a touchdown against the Lions when they tried to mount a comeback. So that got people, certainly for a fair portion of like the winter, early spring, a little bit buzzing about Cade Otton, and then they did not bring in any competition at all. This is a guy who would routinely play 90-95% of the snaps for the Buccaneers the last couple of years, so he's always on the field. So there's a case for it here, but I'm not gonna start him in week 1 as really a lottery ticket tight end when there are just so many other good Tyler Conklin, Jonnu Smith, Taysom Hill. Like we're in, like I've said a couple times, we're in a tight end renaissance now where you can find real value. There's a lot of interesting narratives, a lot of interesting guys that are cheap. Cade Otton is not that interesting. He is cheap, but I don't see it. Jalen McMillan is here. Rashad White is obviously very involved in the passing game. Bucky Irving might be involved now too. So like there's a sneaky large number of mouths to feed here. I don't think Cade Otton's one of them. I'm not into it.
Kate Otten is going to have a week here this season where he will be my start of the week. And I just got to look at when he's playing, the Cardinals, or, we'll find that matchup here this season because there's always one week where he does well during the season, but, or in the playoffs, which,
Right.
yeah, you told me that stat line and I was like, are Kate Otten, the Kate Otten, like we talk about all the time of Mr. 100% snaps, but not getting any of the work. Okay, interesting. Yeah, Kate Otten isn't a guy. If I like to stream tight ends, Cole Kmet, Kate Otten. These guys are both not on my radar here for week one. At defense, I am arguably sitting the 85 Bears. I'm sitting the Jets defense at the 49ers. This is why you stream defenses because even in a draft I was in here earlier today, mind you, all drafts are different, but the Jets defense was the first defense to go off the board, and they drafted him in the 10th round, 16 rounds. Like I do not understand drafting defenses so early. Like if you want to draft them early, that's like 3 rounds before the end. And I get that defenses change each and every single year. Some kind of hold true, and you know what they're going to be. And I could kind of say that the Jets, like I think they're going to be a very good defense, but they're playing a top 5 offense. Like while I don't like Brock Purdy in this matchup, uh, things could go right, or they could run the ball on the ground. Like there are a few different ways that they can win the game. They have enough talent to do that. If I have the Jets defense, like I don't want to roster 2 defenses, but because their matchups after this are super juicy. They get the Titans, the Pats, the Broncos, Vikings. List goes on and on.
Yeah.
And the defense and the Jets might come out and say, "Hey, we are just that good. Put us up against any matchup." And like we're gonna be like that Patriots defense, a few years ago where they were just winning you weeks, or the Cowboys. It's like a lot of those were pick sixes, but it's just like a lot of those ones where they're just winning you the week. Single-handedly because they're getting so many points. The Jets, I think, can do that.
Sure.
I don't want to bet for it against this offense. So
there's a possibility, a strong possibility, like you were just alluding to. The Lions went to Kansas City in the season opener last year, and that was the biggest game that franchise had in a long time. They treated that like a playoff game. They played their guts out. They won, and that charted the course, that plotted their course for their whole season. They wound up making a deep playoff run, coming up just short of the Super Bowl. This is a similar type of game for these Jets, right? I mean, this is we are going to measure ourselves against the 49ers in the season opener. That's inevitable. Like whether it's fair or not, whether they, if they get creamed 30-10 or something like that, how much they should take away from that. That there's going to be an element of that here. So for sure the Jet, and again, like you said, their upcoming schedule is so good that if you don't want to, play roster musical chairs and you just want to grit your teeth and hope that there's a fumble, a pick six, whatever, that's understandable. But yeah, if you're gonna sit them, it's here on the road. San Francisco just got all their guys back. Trent Brown is in house. Brandon Ayuk, they're fully assembled. They're the Power Rangers Megazord getting ready to make another push for the Super Bowl. So yeah, again, if there's ever a time to sit them, it's here, it's now, or at least severely temper expectations. I'm going to go with the Browns. Kind of a similar thing, which is, the Browns were a pretty good fantasy defense last year, and they return a lot of that top-end talent, obviously. And, Dak missed, the whole offseason. CeeDee Lamb is still ramping up. So maybe you feel like, okay, the Cowboys they're back on their heels. I can attack them. I wouldn't. I don't. This is not a... Mike McCarthy, the offense is completely the same. Mike McCarthy's still running it. He's still calling plays. Dak and CeeDee Lamb know each other. Like they don't need a lot of reps to get on the same page here. We're going to be hearing lots of "here we go" this Sunday. So that none of that's going to change. So
that's pretty good.
Thank you. Well, I've heard it a lot. Had a lot of practice. So I'm not saying like, oh, duck the Cowboys, like they're going to hang 40 on the Browns, but they're not going to hold the Cowboys to 16 either. Like this is the temper expectations. If you have some elasticity in your roster and your bench, maybe you throw the Bengals against the Patriots, the Falcons versus the Steelers, because the Cowboys, this could be an underwhelming one for Browns defense owners.
Yeah, I think you wrote it perfectly. Just like the Browns one, I'm not rostering 2 defenses. I do like the Bengals versus the Patriots if available, of course. And there's a few other ones. I think what is it? The Saints play Carolina, I believe. There's a few different ones that you can. Right. That you could stream if you decide you want to do that. The Jets one, now that I'm looking back at it, I'm probably going to keep them in my lineup and just certainly temper expectations, because if I drafted late in people on the end of my roster, they're probably flyers and I want to see what they do, just like our episode yesterday where we want to kind of see what they do in week one. Man, that was fun. I mean, that was
Oh my gosh.
We got the whole starts and sits episode completely done.
That means
how do you
football is
feel?
about to happen.
That's
Oh my
exactly
God.
time to go to sleep. Actually, I do smell my wife cooking some food downstairs, and
Oh.
I'm just gonna grub up. I'm basically gonna hibernate, so
Right.
that I'm ready for Thursday night
Right.
football. It's happening tomorrow. We have the Ravens, we have the Chiefs. Again, we didn't get onto all of the starts and sits. If you guys want to hit us up on Twitter, once again,
Yes.
you got Luke at dluke87. You have myself at _Colt Williams. You can also hit us up on any of the comments on YouTube, Twitter, on fantasyindex.com. Lots of different ways you can hit us up, and just let us know if you're struggling with any of the start decisions here this week.
Yeah, we love talking about that stuff with you guys. Obviously, it's what we do. So let us do our jobs, people. Please let us help you. All right,
Yeah.
we will be back with you next week. Oh my God, if we're excited now,
Yeah.
we get the first batch of real data in 9 months. We get the week 1 waiver wire episode Tuesday next week. It's coming, guys. It's so close. We're going to have so much to talk about. My head might explode on air. Could be awesome. All right. Well, we'll be back with you guys next week to talk about all the craziness that happened. Kyron Williams got benched. Rashad Bateman went for 150 yards. Oh, my God. What are we doing? What are we doing? So it'll be a lot of fun. Enjoy the football this weekend, guys and gals. It's going to be awesome. We will see you next week.
See you then.
This has been the Fantasy Index Podcast. For more great content, premium rankings, and cheat sheets, head over to fantasyindex.com.